Alright, people, review of the week time. So, we get into this. We'll do a review of all. Well, I've already talked about most of the fights that happened last night, but we'll do an in-depth review on all three of the cards. Let's start with the DAZN card. So, I only had a glimpse at the top two fights, which were obviously Jack Catterall versus Dara Foley. Jack Catterall winning a points decision. He had Foley down a couple of times in the fight and he won it on points. Now, Jack Catterall, I said this is obviously his first fight since the loss to Josh Taylor, which we all know he should have won. But I remember saying at the time, going into this fight, me and Jamie were talking about it, is that people have a lot of short memories. So people will look at the Jack Catterall performance against Josh Taylor, which was his career best performance, and they'll tend to forget how, best word I could use is unremarkable, is the best way to describe him, how he looked prior to that fight, against the O'Hara Davises, the Tyrone McKennas of the world. He never looked like setting the world alight to Jack Catterall. And against someone like Dara Foley, he did pretty much everything he needed to do, but in terms of him going in there at world level against guys like Regis Prograis, Teofimo Lopez, etc., Subriel Matias, just to name a few, I think Jack Catterall against certainly Subriel Matias would get absolutely annihilated. I really do. I think Prograis, Matias, I think if a rematch with Taylor happened, Taylor, I would make him favourite. I just think that Jack Catterall, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but I really do believe on that night it was a combination of Josh Taylor underestimating Jack Catterall and just having an off-par performance and just being dismissive, and Jack Catterall rising to the occasion that contributed to how good the performance was. I think if you take Jack Catterall 9 times out of 10, he's not going to perform like that. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's just how I've seen Jack Catterall throughout his career. He's never really impressed me that much. So, yeah, against Dara Foley, he did the job. He did what he needed to do, and he got the win on points. Main event was obviously Mauricio Lara versus Lee Wood. There was a lot of question marks as to whether this fight would actually take place or not, because obviously Mauricio Lara missed weight by a couple of pounds, came in at super featherweight rather than featherweight, so instantly he was stripped of his title. He did eventually agreed to a check weight in the morning of the fight. I think it was something like that, the board are putting in place. But we got the fight anyway. Was it repeat? Was it revenge? It was revenge for Lee Wood. The fight, I have to say, it was probably it's weird, out of the 3 fights, it wasn't the worst fight out of the 3 main cards last night. Oh, believe me, it wasn't. Oh, believe me, we'll get to the worst one now in a sec. Although the worst was also, it's ironic, the worst was probably the one you couldn't take your eyes off while it was happening, if you get me. We'll touch on that now in a sec. But I felt it was a good performance. As I said, at the time when Ben Davison threw that towel in, I was one of very few who said, look, probably was best to throw that towel in, live to fight another day. He took the rematch. My biggest worry was, going into this fight before the weigh-in obviously, was that it's too soon. I mean, we very seldom see rematches, especially after a knockout loss like that, happening so quick. But it did happen. 3 months later, Lee Wood dropped Mauricio Lara in the second. Lara looked, Jamie and me talked about this on Thursday, I think it was, and Jamie said that he hopes Lara doesn't go the way of certain Mexican fighters when they win a world title and they just kind of mentally check out. They've done it, they've made their money, and mentally kind of check out. It looked like that's what Lara did. Like, mentally, he was just like, I've done what I need to do, I'm okay. And Lee Wood was obviously wary of Mauricio Lara's power. He obviously knew he was knocked out by Mauricio Lara at one shot, so he was a lot more wary. Boxed very well, boxed to a game plan, didn't really take any unnecessary chances, and got the win on points. So Lee Wood moves on. I would imagine that him against Josh Warrington will be next. I do think Josh Warrington will have to get a win, more than likely anyway, because some are saying that the only way these sanctions bodies are to make their rules up as they go along. But you would imagine that, I've heard a lot of people say for Josh Warrington to get a voluntary shot, he'd need to have at least 1 win. So maybe Hearn will do Josh Warrington in the summer in Leeds on a card there and just have him fight whoever, get the win, and then maybe they'll do Lee Wood versus Josh Warrington in the autumn or the winter. If they did that at the City Ground, obviously they'd have to do it at the City Ground because Lee Wood is the champion. He's got the momentum. I mean, he actually beat Mauricio Lara, something Josh Warrington was unable to do. And, although you think that Mauricio Lara, look, I would have liked to have seen Lara get another crack at Warrington because I think that he's unfinished business there. He was rightly screwed in the second fight with the headbutts. But I would rather see, because it's more intriguing, Josh Warrington versus Lee Wood. So it looks like we're going to get that. Let's wait and see. In terms of the other fight, the other champion at 126 pounds, Luis Alberto Lopez, he fought Michael Conlan. Now, I only seen Nicky Ball's fight, and he fought this guy, Ludmu Lamiti. And thankfully, Lamiti, he's okay. Apparently, he was taken to hospital after this fight, took a hellacious beating in there, was stopped in the 12th round. Really should have probably came in a bit earlier, to be honest with you, the stoppage. But nevertheless, he was stopped in the 12th round. He was taken out on a stretcher, but by all reports today, thank God, he seems to be okay. Thank God for that. Nicky Ball moves on. They were talking after the fight that he'd like to fight for a world title in the winter or autumn. Well, after seeing how Luis Alberto Lopez did against Mick Conlan, I would say maybe steer clear of him. maybe take a couple of more step-up fights, Nicky Ball, because although stylistically that fight would be absolutely brilliant, it would be absolutely brilliant. Luis Alberto Lopez, they both have a common opponent in Isaac Lowe, and you'd argue Nicky Ball did a better job with Isaac Lowe than Luis Alberto Lopez did. That fight would be an absolute, oh boy, that'd be a war of a fight. Both guys throw a lot of punches. Alberto Lopez is so unorthodox, and you saw Mick Conlan in there. He didn't keep his shape well at all in there. He fought the wrong fight as far as I'm concerned, and he got stopped again in brutal fashion, just like the last one. Very, very bad knockout. Mick Conlan has said he's going to take a bit of time off and then have a look-see at things. Look, I said it in my post-fight review. I'm going to say it again. Mick Conlan, he's been matched wrong. They've matched him arseways. They've stepped up from time to time, and then they've taken massive jumps with him. Conlan had the extended amateur background, but he's caught between styles. I don't know if Adam Boot is the right guy for him. He can't just go from fighting the guys he's been fighting up into world level. He's good enough that he could fight some of these fringe guys and, gain a little bit more. I mean, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Of course you can. You can teach Mick Conlan some new tricks. And I think that would stand him in good stead. I do, because that's going to be a very, very hard knockout defeat to come back from. And that's two bad knockout defeats in the space of a year. Very bad knockout defeats at that. They're not like getting stopped standing or premature stoppages. He's been knocked out badly twice now. So I'd say that chin is going to be fairly dented after that. Now, the card I had least amount of hope for, which had two very interesting fights on it. So Sam Egerton versus Joe Pigford. Going into this fight now, I was thinking, Egerton versus Pigford, that could be an interesting little scrap, because, Joe Pigford, he was undefeated going into this fight, had a lot of knockouts. I think he was 20-0 with 19 knockouts. And he's always been entertaining, always been enjoyable to watch. As has Sam Egerton, who, every time he stepped up, really, really stepped up, he's lost above British level. And how many losses does he have now? He's 8 losses. So I think at this point, a lot of people, myself included, even though he's not even 30 yet, well, I've been thinking he's been over the hill for a while, or I've often thought, right, that loss is it now. But he's always come back just seemingly stronger. He's like a pound shop or Turogatti in that regard, because every single time you think, he's done now, he just comes back and looks fresh as anything. Joe Pigford in there, I don't know how it's possible, but he did it. He made Sam Egerton look like Pernell Whitaker in there. He really did. I don't know how he did it, but he managed to do it. Sam Egerton just picked him apart, stopped him in the 5th round, which was a bad hard to say. I forget who was refereeing that fight, but it was near the end of the 5th round. Sam Egerton stunned him. I think it was with a left hook, and Pigford was pretty much out on his feet. Egerton backed up again the ropes and then opened up a combination. The referee was constantly like, will I, won't I, will I, won't I. I think it was Bob Williams. And what I kind of thought by looking at it was, Bob Williams was obviously aware that the round was near its conclusion. So he was obviously thinking, right, bell's going to ring, bell's going to ring, bell's going to ring. But before that, too many shots went in. And I think, even though it was near the end of the round, Pigford was getting hit a lot in this fight prior to the stoppage. He probably could have stopped it a little bit earlier. But I can kind of see his rationale of letting it go on a little bit longer. But I think, just judging by the body reaction to Joe Pigford, the way he was, it stopped it a little bit too late, in my opinion. Pigford was never going to recover. And even if he'd seen the final bell, I don't think he would have. I think his corner probably would have stopped it anyway. So Egerton moves on. Be interesting to see who they put him in there with next. In terms of the main event, now, you may have heard me say at the start, I thought the Lee Wood Mauricio Lara fight would be the best. Was it the best? I mean, I think Alberto Lopez versus Conlon was the best of the three. It was just entertaining from start to finish. This fight was the worst. It really was. Okolie versus Billum Smith, by far and away, this was the worst fight of the night. But in a strange way, it was the most intriguing. Because you seen Okolie get dropped for the first time as a pro. You seen him foul incessantly. And do you know what I find this just strange, right? It's just strange to me, right? Who was the referee in this fight? Doesn't say, does it? Who refereed it? Referee was Marcus McDonald, right? Marcus McDonald's an experienced referee. And a lot of people were praising him for the way he behaved in this fight in terms of penalising Okolie, etc., etc. I don't think he should get praise. I think that even though he did penalise Okolie, this was the worst I've ever seen Okolie in terms of fouling. I mean, there was fouls he was doing in there, like leaving his hand out like that in front of Bill Smith's face, which you're not allowed to do, that Marcus McDonald wasn't picking him up on. You know, the holding was incessant. And you could see, he was right on top of it all the time. Even when he docked points from Lawrence Okolie, he could still see what was going on. As far as I'm concerned, yeah, he was right to dock him those 2 points, but it should have been more. I mean, realistically, Okolie should have got disqualified in there. And I think that, like, if I was Billum Smith, right? If I was Chris Billum Smith and I knew, and I hope Lawrence, look, to be honest with you, I'd be pretty happy to see Lawrence Okolie just, it's quite clear boxing's not for him. You know, he's done a lot in boxing in a short space of time, that's great to know. But the way he fights like someone who is absolutely petrified of someone getting in close to him and hitting him. Right? It's fine when he's fighting these low level opposition. He can let his hands go. He can look a bit devastating. But the minute he starts feeling threatened in there, he just tries to clinch and grab and foul his way. Not even to a knockout win, just to survive to the end, because he shuts down his opponent offensively, so they can't do anything. So he's the only one who could win the rounds. He clearly has no hunger for battle. He clearly has no faith in his chin, judging by what we saw in the fourth round and stemming back from his amateur career. Boxing clearly isn't for him. Right, and you know, he's talking about going up to the heavyweight division. What does he actually think is going to happen in the heavyweight division when he's bigger than all these cruiserweights and he's stronger, right? So he's able to use that. But when he goes in there at heavyweight, and let's just chuck a heavyweight, Zhilei Zhang, who can take a really good shot, who will absolutely ragdoll Lawrence Okolie up and down that ring. What does he think is going to happen? He's going to get his head clean taken off his shoulders. So it's not going to get any easier. Right, and I think that the way he's fighting there, he's not going to let his hands go at heavyweight. He's going to get absolutely destroyed when he steps up to heavyweight, if he steps up. But if I was Billum Smith and I knew this guy has a rematch clause, I would be insisting that wherever the rematch is, whatever happens, I want an American referee. That's what I'd be saying. I want an American referee, because in America, they really don't like Lawrence Okolie, right? Had he been in America last night, regardless if this was a world title fight and it was an American referee, that would have been a DQ. 100%. They do not like that stuff over in America, and they do take it a lot more serious, and they are more strict at enforcing it than they are in the UK. The American referees, there obviously will be exceptions, but for the most part, they tend to draw the line pretty damn quick and penalise you pretty damn quick if you're fouling incessantly in the ring. In the UK, yeah, Marcus McDonald docked a few points, but he still let low. Like, let's not beat around the bush and pretend like this was a brilliant A-star referee performance. He let loads of fouls go in there. Loads of them. Right, so it wasn't like, you know, he picked up on everything. No, he let loads go. Which just goes to show how much fouling Okolie was actually doing in there. When, like, there was that much to pick him apart on, you'd say he had to be disqualified. You know, it was a horrendous performance. But it was intriguing at the same time, because you could see, how would I describe it? You could see the type of fighter Okolie would be if he didn't have the clinching. If referees were a lot more strict with him, you could clearly see the type of fight. Like, he wouldn't cut it at world level. He wouldn't. He just wouldn't. He wouldn't cut it at world level. He's no inside game to speak. If a fighter can get underneath those shots, they will light him, but they'll have a field day with him. Right? So, I honestly wonder what Ben Shalom is thinking. Like, he has Chris Billum Smith, who's done a stadium fight, a Vitality Stadium, which is good. But offering Lawrence Okolie what, crazy money to go over to Sky. What did he really think was going to happen? I mean, like, Eddie Hearn, and I think with Eddie Hearn, the only reason why, because Okolie and Ben Shalom were having a go at Eddie Hearn saying, oh, well, if Okolie is losing money hand over fist, why is Eddie Hearn making it so difficult? I think Hearn made it so difficult because Okolie made it difficult by making those comments. And Eddie Hearn was like, look, I could just let you go, but the principle, if you just said to me, we could have done it this way, but no, you had to go and make these comments. You had, at the end of the day, right, what has Eddie Hearn done for Lawrence Okolie? Loads. Absolutely loads. So for him to go and say those things about Eddie Hearn, when it's like, if that was Bob Arum or Frank Warren, and you'd stunk out the joint once, much less twice, they would have fed you to the wolves. They literally would have. I mean, those guys don't play around when it comes to prospects and stuff like that. They match some of their prospects hard, and if a prospect they feel is maybe not going to make the money or it's out of line, they're going to feed him to the wolves. Eddie Hearn didn't do that with Lawrence Okolie. He did not do that. And Lawrence Okolie, to go and kind of chuck it back in Eddie Hearn's face, a lot of people would say karma. And for the way he fights, it's a horrible. You cannot watch those fights. They're horrendous. So a lot of people are happy Lawrence Okolie lost for the simple reason. Well, one, it's gone to a stellar guy in Chris Billen-Smith. Really, really, absolutely cracking lad. And a lot of people are also happy given the fact that Lawrence Okolie has been stinking the joint out for the last 2 years, and he's finally been put on the seat of his pants and maybe been humbled a little bit. I don't know. But that's the Sky show. That's the weekend shows in a nutshell. Now let's get into the news that's been going on through the week that we haven't had a chance to cover, or some that we have. So Artur Beterbiev will face Callum Smith August the 19th, Quebec, Canada. Look forward to that fight. That should be a good fight. It's going to be on Sky Sports, not on DAZN. Alright, so Callum Smith going over to Sky Sports. Obviously, Sky Sports have a deal with Top Rank, so Top Rank shows are shown on Sky. This will be on Top Rank. They won the purse bid. So Callum Smith, Artur Beterbiev, that's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting fight. Alexander Usyk's team, Alex Krasuk, his promoter, I should say, has won the purse bid for the Daniel Dubois fight. So 8 million by Krasuk as opposed to 5.6 for Frank Warren. It's a big pay cut compared to the Joshua fight, but at the end of the day, it is still a mandatory. It is still 6 million. You wouldn't turn your nose up at that. Daniel Dubois is going to have a nice little 2 million. Not too shabby. So that's what's going to happen. August the 12th in Poland is the reported date. I'd be making Alexander Usyk firm favourite in that. The fight that we all want is finally announced. Crawford Spence, July 29th, T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. I know I touched on a lot of these already briefly in Review of the Week and stuff like that, but absolutely delighted that they got that fight over the line. Oh, lads, I'm still buzzing with that fight. That fight is going to be on Fight Week with Inoue versus Fulton. So we've got two amazing fight cards that week. Just, boxing in 2023 is the gift that keeps on giving. Now, this story right here isn't getting talked about an awful lot. And I want to touch on this, right? I want to touch on this story. So, a female fighter called Hannah Gabriels, right, failed a PED test. She tested positive for a substance called clostebol, I think is how you pronounce that, which is meant now that she's been pulled from her fight with Clarissa Shields. Now, her promoter is one of the worst virtue signalers in boxing, Lou DiBella, and is always up on his moral high horse about PED usage in boxing. Do you want to know what he said when his fighter failed? Wait till you hear this. Her dog had major abdominal surgery. She applied the medication to her dog, and it somehow got into her bloodstream. Yeah. It reminds me of that scene in Little Britain. If you've ever watched the show Little Britain, where they have the disgraced politician, David Williams plays him, where he's gay, but he's trying to deny. But that's the excuse Lou DiBella's come out with. And, you know, I said this about Lou DiBella several times. I think Lou DiBella, you see, here's the thing about Lou DiBella, right? Lou DiBella is one of the worst virtue signalers in boxing. And I've said this once, I'll say it again. I don't like virtue signaling because a lot of people, the majority of people who are prolific virtue signalers, don't give a damn about anything they're trying to push. They're just looking for likes on Facebook, likes on Twitter. They're looking to portray themselves as the good guy, you know, the man who's very virtuosious and I love this and I'm this, and blah, 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 and I'm all for... At the end of the day, Luda Bella has been saying, oh, drug cheats, this, that, and the other, no excuses. Here he is making an excuse, right? Luda Bella, you see, some people would say, oh, Eddie Hearn is awful. He's a scum. He's this, he's that, he's this. Well, look, I wouldn't be Eddie Hearn's biggest fan, but I don't think he's as bad as a lot of people make him out to be. Whereas some people would be saying, well, Luda Bella's not like Eddie Hearn. I would say, no, he's not. I'd actually say he's worse, believe it or not, than Eddie Hearn. You know, the way I'm looking at it is, Luda Bella, right, has talked about, the issues of fighters, old fighters coming back to boxing, and promoters should shame on promoters for putting on fights where the fighter is old, or he literally got Jermaine Taylor. What's Jermaine Taylor? Yeah, Jermaine Taylor out of retirement when he's clearly suffering issues neurologically, and tried to sell him as a world champion. Right? You'd no issue with that, but anyone else does it. How dare you do that? How dare you? Someone's fighter fails a drugs test. Any fighter. It doesn't have to be just any fighter in general that's not his. How dare that promoter do that? And all Luda Bella simps. Oh, Lou, you're amazing, you're brilliant. And then this happens. Straight onto Twitter making excuses, saying it to everyone making excuses, and radio silence from all his followers. All these people who speak out about, PED cheats in boxing when it's someone else. When Luda Bella's fighters fail, oh well, you're nowhere to be seen. So I just want to... Luda Bella drives me absolutely nuts because he's so disingenuous. Luda Bella has so much hatred in his heart. He really does. He really has an awful lot of hatred in his heart. You can just tell that by the way he carries on. He's an absolutely disgraceful human being. He really is. So reporting on that. So any fighters listening, there's an excuse. I thought Conor Benn with the whole egg theory had topped it, but no, if you have a dog, right, somehow, amazingly, it can get into your bloodstream, their medication, and it can cause you to fail a drugs test. So just bear that in mind. Pretty much, if you're going to be... Pretty much just lock yourself in a cupboard for the whole way through camp. You're guaranteed not to fail unless you inhale some of the dust, in which case then you might fail. Anyway, moving on to some of the other news that we have going on here. So, the Tyson Fury Anthony Joshua fight. Right, I have the actual quote here. So, Eddie Hearn denied that there was ever a draft contract sent to Anthony Joshua. He confirmed that George Warren has reached out to talk, but said Joshua doesn't believe Fury and his only priority is actually fighting in August and then Deontay Wilder in December. Now, George Warren clarified this. He said that we sent a formal offer to Joshua's team for the Fury fight in September, not a draft contract. He said the exact same terms AJ accepted last year. 60-40 split first time, 50-50 rematch clause if AJ wins. He's also said, we've got enough time, hopefully this time, to get it done. If they want to make it there to be done. The contract was very, very close in December. We could get together next week, sit down and get it done. Small issue there is what happens to Alexander Usyk, because the money the Saudis were talking about offering surely they'd still make more money going through with the Usyk fight in Saudi than they would. I know the Joshua fight wouldn't be poor, put it like that, but surely the Saudi deal is better, isn't it not? I think it's just all they're trying to do. It seems like all Team Fury are trying to do, whatever way they can, by whatever means, by hook or by crook, they do not want to fight Alexander Usyk. For whatever reason, I don't know. Even though the Saudi deal, if it's being reported as it is, looks to be a much better deal in terms of financially, they still seem to want to go down the Joshua road. Why, I do not know. For what reason, again, I assume it's just the fact that they see Alexander Usyk as too high a risk with, I was going to say too low reward, but apparently if this Saudi money is as good as it is, then surely it's got to be a high enough of a reward to take it. It's a risk, but it's a massive reward either way. Anthony's on a postcard there. Seriously, Anthony's on a flipping postcard there. I really don't know what to... Look, at the end of the day, right, we've been around this before. 2 years ago, 3 years ago really is when they first started talking about it. We've been here, seen it, done it, wore the t-shirt. They didn't get the fight done in 21. They didn't get it done in 22. I doubt 23 is going to be any different. And to be honest with you, I really don't care at this point. All I want to see is Joshua. All I want to see is, I would like to see Joshua Wilder, but all I want to see from Fury is Usyk. As far as I'm concerned, that's the fight to make. Just make the Alexander Usyk fight and be done with it. That is the fight to make. Please. That's what we want. Us as boxing fans, that is the fight we want. Let's get it over the line. other than that, there's no other real fight for Fury to make, in terms of legacy. If you're just going to try and milk that title, just say it. Stop trying to gaslight the people into thinking, Alexander Usyk is ducking me and he's afraid. He's clearly not. He'll clearly fight you. You just keep moving the goalpost every single chance you get. And now it could be a case if you're going to abandon it and just go and fight Anthony Joshua and then probably turn around and say, well, Alexander Usyk hasn't signed a contract, so I'm not going to fight him. What, the contract that you kept moving the goalpost for April? Where's any talk of a contract for December, September, October, January, etc.? Nothing. So, that's my thoughts on that. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Going out on a Sunday, this one, because I'll try and maybe do a live tomorrow. We'll try and do a live. Try and get more lives in this week. But it's been a very, very good week. Very, very good last 10 days with the channel. We've got a hell of a lot of subscribers in the last couple of days. It's been very good. When boxing is booming, the channels are booming, and it's good to see. I've got a busy week ahead of me this week. I've got a lot of stuff going on. And yeah, a lot of planning ahead for this next week. So hopefully it's a good week for myself, and hopefully whoever's listening has a great week as well. They get some good news. We all deserve it. We all need it. Like the video, lads. I'll talk to you. Peace.